SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Shady Acres Farm brings premium, grass-fed, grain-finished beef straight from our family farm. Visit Shady Acres Farm Store at 122 Highway 50 West in Columbus, or give us a call at 662-205-6188, and visit us at shadyacresms.com.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man. Way past.
Hey, good morning. Welcome in. May 13th, 2026. Glad to be with you. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. Streaming online at supertalk.fm. Available to you on SuperTalk TV, on the app, and of course on your SuperTalk Mississippi radio stations across the great state of Mississippi. We welcome you in this morning. The show every day is presented by Community Bank. Online at communitybank.net. Community Bank, rooted in our community. C-Spire text line open to you, 601-879-4395. Great deals for your grad. Great deals for your dad. Oh, see what I did there? Just not even trying right out of the gate, and it's rhyming already. Going to be a good day. Going to be a great show. We are glad to be with you. If you are watching on SuperTalk TV, you recognize that the environs are different from me. From the mothership today. Glad to be in our headquarters at SuperTalk Mississippi. And glad to be across the glass from my man, Lance Toller. What's up, brother?
What's up, RC? I'm glad you didn't have to drive down this morning. Dude, that'd have been a mess. It's
little soupy.
Golly. I saw and did the report yesterday for it, and I'm like, yeah, fog. You never really think about it much. But man, getting across the rest today was a bit of a challenge, so folks, be careful. It is thicker than you think.
So what did you do? Just close your eyes and press the gas, or did you really slow down?
It was kind of like a bad day at the hitting the pins, bowling, just bouncing off the bumpers. No, it just take it easy. Really, is the trick. I think the traffic was pretty thick this morning for a Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I was gonna say, is there ever a morning where you do not encounter any head-on traffic as you go across?
Definitely. It'll it seems like Mondays are usually the day that Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah.
By Wednesday, people are starting to get up, going, all right, the weekend's getting here. I have stuff to do.
Right.
It always seems that also when you have both Mississippi State and Ole Miss playing baseball games or football games, you notice that the Friday, Wednesday through Friday traffic picks up because everybody's wanting to get out of town. Like, I'm going to knock this out, get this stuff done. But yeah, Monday's the hangover day. I love driving in on Mondays because it's just peg it, man. You're good to go.
Then you occasionally get the holiday where it's like, wait, there's nobody here.
There are a bunch of police from around Jackson area that live out toward where I do. So, I know a time where I have to get in front of them. And if I'm running a little late, then you kind of have to abide.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Some of them are like Gluckstadt and Madison and that. But I got a couple Ridgeland ones that I kind of know now. I'm like, all right, I got to behave a little better.
Got to ease up just a little bit. Don't need to ask for a favor too often.
No. Yeah, I don't want to ask for favors from the police. I'm sure they get that way too much. So you just got to pay attention, follow the law, and be a good driver out there.
Weather across the state today, South Haven going to be absolutely gorgeous for you. Sunny with a high near 84, winds light. Told you yesterday that the humidity was going to be less. It was. I sat outside on the back porch for a little while just after the show ended. Jane and I were visiting, and right before the sun got above the trees, so there was still a little bit of shade. I was like, man, this is amazing. And then that sun cleared, and I was sitting there like staring right into it. I was like, it just warmed up fast. But it was without the humidity, so not bad. Tonight in South Haven, overnight low of around 56. degrees. Vicksburg, patchy fog for you this morning. By the way, if you are in central Mississippi, especially in the Jackson metro area, we're talking about the fog. We're serious. It is thick, like thick this morning. So give yourself a little bit of extra time and slow down just a touch. Vicksburg, after that fog burns off, you're going to make it up to about 84 degrees today. Tonight, a low of 62. Going to be sunny and mild across the city of Vicksburg. Waynesboro, 84 degrees today for you with light winds. Tonight, 59 for the overnight low. It's kind of all across the state of Mississippi right now. Pascagoula, patchy fog, about 83 degrees for your high. Clear tonight. Possible fog rolling in again this evening with a low of 64 degrees. What a day. What a week.
Well, I mean, you got it lined up perfect. You get to spend a day in Jackson, then you get golf for a couple days. SEC Bay. Are you all weekend on golf, or is it
Thursday, Friday?
That's what I thought you said. And you're off for the rest of the weekend, or do you have to spot up and do some baseball calling?
That is it. Once I get to Friday, I'm done. So
busy week.
Yeah,
you get up to Philadelphia and back. That was fun.
Yeah, it was. I will not be with you tomorrow. We will be together on Friday, sort of. Going to have some replay stuff, some new content as we try this new thing on Fridays and kind of give it a test run. Let's take a look at some birthdays today. Some interesting ones on the list. Morgan Wallen is 32 years old tonight. I feel like there are a lot of people that don't like his music, and yet people listen and go. And the crowds that he draws for stadium after stadium after stadium, really, really impressive. Really impressive.
I've never really listened to his music, but I know he sells a heck of a lot of tickets.
Yeah.
There's a loyal following, and it's part of that new country that seems to be, hitting the ground running. I mean,
Yeah.
They teach their own with music, it's kind of my theory. I'm sure if I actually paid attention to Morgan Wallen, I'd probably enjoy his music. It's just,
You might not.
maybe not.
Robert Pattinson is 40 years old today, the actor known for Twilight and The Batman. The legendary Stevie Wonder, 76 today. R&B, soul singer, songwriter, musician. He just called to say he loves you.
He's fun to it. Back in the, 90s, I saw him a few times in live concerts, like festivals. He was always very good. He'd give you a nice little diatribe, too. Some good life lessons.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah, some inspirational stuff. And then, boom, you'd hit some music. And then he'd
I just
kind of,
called
to had some dialogue in there. He was always good, man.
He was so good. Basketball Hall of Famer Dennis Rodman, the Worm.
Great negotiator.
65 years old today. How do you know that? From watching him on The Apprentice?
Well, didn't they send him to North Korea?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. You got to be a good negotiator if they send you over there.
Kim Jong-un?
It's one
Is
of
that
those,
right?
yeah. One of the ones that looks like they eat real well while the rest of the place not
Hey,
so much.
you see who's next, right?
The girl?
His daughter.
The daughter, yeah. She's tough, too. She's rough, tough. She don't put up with a whole lot from what I've read about her.
Yeah.
Kind of got that iron face. Pretty, but, you probably don't want to mess with her.
I'm sorry, you just described her as an iron face and then go, pretty.
She is pretty.
Or
She
you
just doesn't smile, though.
She
has that natural beauty. And then
I think you just threw the pretty in because you're convinced they're listening and you don't want a nuclear warhead aimed at your face.
Well, my phone, I go with the Korean made. You never know. There may be some components in there that are from the old communist regime somehow or another. Don't want to have a blown up ear.
Stephen Colbert is 62 today. The not particularly funny comedian and late night show host that is soon to no longer be a late night show host.
Yeah.
I think it's set in.
Yeah, most of those guys are such limited fan base.
Yeah, which, whatever. Niche audience, whatever, do your thing, whatever makes you happy. I'm good with that. Congratulations on all of your success. There was a time where Stephen Colbert was pretty funny and pretty witty. And he's just gone so far, like so many, he's just gone so far to the nut job left. And by the way, if you're tuning in for the first time, you're like, I can't believe you called me the right has nut jobs too.
Yeah,
like, we got the nut job left and we got the nut job right. Okay, so it's not nobody has the market cornered on that, but he has gone so far to the nut job left. It's just not funny.
Yeah, you make a good point too. You'd have to point to me a member of the left that has an audience, that has a platform, that hasn't swung so far to the left. I'd just like to know of one. I'd probably tune in and just see what it sounded like. But because I forgot what moderation.
I might argue that Jimmy Fallon comes the closest of the late night hosts to fit point. That. He's just kind of a talented, funny guy. I mean, do I think he probably voted for Obama? Sure, I do. But I think he's also recognized that, hey, I probably don't need to be Jimmy Fallon here. I'm sitting in a really large chair that has been really successful for a lot of people for a lot of years.
Happy to be here. Yeah.
How about I don't screw that up? Darius Rucker born today as well. Hootie! Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Just getting started. Governor's coming by at 8 o'clock this morning. Hope you won't miss that.
But there's no place that I'd rather be than right here with my redneck, white socks and blue ribbon beer.
Good morning from the Super Talk, Mississippi.
You heard it here first.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Here comes the news.
South to the land of the pines, I'm thumbing my way into North Carolina, staring up the road and pray to God I see headlights.
There are few people that have navigated a career change quite the way that Darius Rucker has. Is that fair?
Man, he's amazing.
I mean, I feel like it's just always cool to bang on bands. But Hootie and the Blowfish in the 90s was huge.
They were huge. I loved them, too.
They were really, really a big deal. And then when somebody makes the transition from, pop, light rock, how would you describe Hootie and the Blowfish? They weren't rock and roll.
I mean, they were considered a rock band from the 90s, from 86-ish, 85, I think is when they were founded, 86. So they were, in that rock and roll, new rock of the 90s, but not.
It was
grunge,
softer,
but not grunge. So which you had.
It wasn't grunge. It wasn't yacht rock.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it was a little more yacht rocky.
Yachty, yeah. I mean, that's golf course rock almost, kind of stuff.
Yeah, golf course rock, like that.
Now everybody has the
speaker on the
golf. Now everybody's jamming. So,
They're not all places are good with that, but a lot are.
Get close to the back, the back of the course.
Yeah.
Anything can happen back there.
Yeah. So Darius Rucker, happy birthday. Daphne du Maurier, the British author of the book Rebecca, among others, born on this day in 1907. Joe Louis, one of the all-time great boxers, born in 1914, and who could forget B. Arthur?
Well, you got to say the quote from America. Joe Louis, he was 76 years old when he beat Rocky Marciano or whatever. Love that movie. Yeah, Joe Louis. And B. Arthur.
Dorothy.
Yes.
Who was your favorite of the Golden Girls?
I like the mom, Estelle Getty. Was that her real name? I'm trying to remember. She was just kind of you never knew what was going to come out of her mouth.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, so I kind of loved her. She was
Ma.
Ma. But you had Blanche.
Blanche was
she was kind of a cougar. Yeah. Isn't that right?
Yeah, but whatever the step beyond that would be.
They're all in a retirement villa, right? Wasn't that what it was?
Yeah, they were at the original The Villages.
Yes, that's what it was, exactly.
All right, 1568, the Battle of Langside. They forced Mary, Queen of Scots, forces of her people were defeated by a confederacy of Scottish Protestants led by James Stewart. Mary fled to England shortly thereafter. She was jailed and ultimately executed. They were tough.
They didn't treat their kinfolk too well back in those days.
1607, English colonists led by Captain Christopher Newport arrived at Jamestown, Virginia. The next day, they went ashore, establishing the first permanent English settlement in North America. 1637, according to tradition, French Cardinal Richelieu introduced the rounded table knife. He had the pointed ends of the knife blunted to prevent diners from, 1, picking their teeth, and 2, stabbing each other.
And him. He was a pretty well-disliked person. And I love that story, too, because it's one we've told for, like, every year that I've been on this show. That one pops up. I'm like, it's already been a year again?
The rounded knife.
Yeah, it reminds me, like, how that story right there is kind of like, okay, it's a year.
You had the Knights of the Round Table, and then you had the Round Table with the rounded knife.
And you think about people sitting there picking their teeth or stabbing each other. That was the biggest problem at dinner in England.
Yeah. 11-year-old Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart premiered his first opera, Apollo at Hyacinthus, in Salzburg. 11 years old. That was your first sign that this guy had a chance.
Well, that and the name. I mean, that name out of the gate tells you better live up to it. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart.
I can't decide which is the coolest part of the name.
Yeah, I mean, they're all good. That's my point. You got to live up to that, and I think he did.
The First Fleet departed Britain under the watchful eye of Captain Arthur Phillip, bound for Australia on this day in 1787. They arrived at Botany Bay in January of 1788, so it was not a short boat ride, and settled at Port Jackson, which later became Sydney. 1846, Congress officially declared war on Mexico. Following border disputes and skirmishes, this began the Mexican-American War, which ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848. 1940, Winston Churchill delivered his first speech as British Prime Minister to the House of Commons. He said, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat."
That's a pat on the back there.
Yeah. It's like, all I'm going to give you is everything I've got. 1950, you had the inaugural Formula One World Championship race. It was held at Silverstone Circuit in Britain. Giuseppe Farina won the first one. A couple of other things. 1989, thousands of Chinese students began a hunger strike in Tiananmen Square in Beijing as part of a pro-democracy and anti-corruption protest. That did not end particularly well.
But it did help Tim Waltz get some press.
30 years later.
Yeah. He used that.
Igor Sikorsky in 1940 piloted the maiden flight of the VS-300, an early successful helicopter design with a single vertical tail rotor. I think we've still got some Sikorskys floating around.
That's the one. I can understand the Wright brothers in a glider testing that out. Going, okay, we can fly like a bird, but a helicopter? Would you have been really giddy about being a helicopter test pilot?
I kind of like that other people have been pioneers in aviation.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of my theory on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the helicopter's the one. Ask Mary. She was the chopper lady for the news forever, Mary Whedon, and they did those where they turn the engine off and, the free fall thing, and, it's crazy.
In a plane or a helicopter?
In a helicopter, yeah. I mean, it's just some of the stories about being in a helicopter. I've been up in one, and I'm like, yep, I think that's good enough.
Yeah. I would be fine with flying in a helicopter now. See, I would prefer somebody else to, invent the helicopter and the plane. Just give me, the zipper.
What do they call it? The rotor? Something? I don't know. She's talked about it to me. I'm like, man, you couldn't pay me to want to do that.
All right. Sad news here in the state of Mississippi. Dan Fordyce, the son of former Governor Kirk Fordyce, was killed in a plane crash yesterday. WLBT was the first to receive confirmation that a single-engine plane took the life of Fordyce. The crash happened around 3 o'clock yesterday at the Vicksburg-Tallulah Regional Airport, just across the state line in Madison Parish, Louisiana. The local sheriff's office confirmed one fatality. They did not immediately release the name of the deceased. Fordyce was the only person on board. He was an aviation enthusiast, especially an old plane aviation enthusiast. He was a Vicksburg native and was serving as director emeritus of Fordyce Construction Company, a military veteran and the founder of the Warrior Bonfire Program, a nonprofit that provided retreats and other opportunities to Purple Heart recipients to help in their recovery journeys. He served in the U.S. Army and in the Mississippi National Guard. Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann, State Auditor Shad White issued statements and offered their condolences. Lieutenant Governor Hosemann said, "We are devastated by the loss of Dan Fordyce, husband, father, and businessman who may best be known for creating Warrior Bonfire to help military veterans survive the effects of war and provide them hope for the future." Shad White said, "Saddened by the loss of my dear friend Dan Fordyce. Every Fordyce I ever met was a fighter and a truth teller. We needed more of those, and we lost a good one today. Prayers for the Fordyce family this evening." Kirk Fordyce served as governor in Mississippi from 1992 through the year 2000. Sad story. I think he was in a P-51 that had been restored and was extra special to him. So a tough story there. Let's see here. Had a death. Details still kind of sketchy on this. Highway 49 and Highway 42. A person is dead and another has been arrested following a shooting yesterday in Forest County. MBI said agents responded to reports of gunfire near the intersection of Highways 49 and 42. MBI confirmed that one person suffered fatal injuries and that one arrest has been made. Identities have not yet been released of either the victim or the suspect, and it remains unclear what exactly led to the shooting. Don't know if this was road rage or if there was something else that was going on. As a result of the storms and tornadoes that hit Mississippi on May 6th and 7th, the State Department of Health announced yesterday that it is providing Tdap vaccinations. That's tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis. Get your tetanus shot. And birth certificates at no cost to residents in Lincoln, Lamar, and Franklin counties. For anybody that lost those or needs those, the American Red Cross is involved as well. Residents and first responders 19 and older in the impacted area can receive the Tdap vaccine at no cost, regardless of insurance status. If you've been involved in the cleanup efforts, you are encouraged to get that tetanus shot if you haven't had one.
From the Seabrook Doc.
Now, what can be offered to you?
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Information.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Oh, baby, like I told you, I can't dig it, mama. Well, if you wanna do, I'll be glad to have you. Well, I love you so, please don't go, please stay here.
Quite the envoy for the United States on its way to China. President Trump and President Xi Jinping of China are set to meet and talk about, I'm sure, a bevy of issues. Chief among those is trade and working together in business. President went to Truth Social while aboard Air Force One to correct a report from CNBC. He said that CNBC incorrectly reported that the great Ginseng Huang of NVIDIA was not invited to the incredible gathering of the world's greatest businessmen and women proudly going to China. In actuality, he is currently on Air Force One, and unless I ask him to leave, which is highly unlikely, CNBC's reporting is incorrect, or as they say in politics, fake news. It is an honor to have him. Listen to this crew. Honored to have Jensen, Elon, Tim Apple. He's still going with the Tim Apple. instead of Tim Cook. Larry Fink, Steven Schwartzman, Kelly Ortberg from Boeing, Brian Sykes from Cargill, Jane Fraser from Citi, Larry Culp from GE Aerospace, David Solomon from Goldman Sachs, Sanjay Mehrotra from Micron, Cristiano Aman from Qualcomm, and many others journeying to the great country of China, where I will be asking President Xi, a leader of extraordinary distinction, to open up China so that these brilliant people can work their magic and help bring the People's Republic to an even higher level. In fact, I promise that when we are together, which will be in a matter of hours, I will make that my very first request. I have never seen or heard of any idea that would be more beneficial to our incredible countries. Signed, President Donald J. Trump. Mornings of Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank. Glad to be with you. The C Spire text line is open this morning, 601-879-4395. Thomas in Greenwood says, not all on one flight, I hope. I had a similar thought, Thomas. That is a lot of, to use a Elon Musk term, compute on one flight. Elon actually followed up the president's tweet, and he said, just Jensen and I are on Air Force One. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if you loaded all of those people up on the same plane. But a lot of business people. That is a lot of net worth.
Yeah.
In addition to a lot of compute on one plane.
Well, I like the opening part where he said, I'd have to ask him to leave because he's on Air Force One. That'd be
unless I ask him to leave.
That's the first step's a doozy, kind of. You better have a chute on or something.
That would be a bit of a power play, too.
Yeah. Hey, you got to go, buddy.
I'm sorry. This isn't just going to work.
Yeah. I mean, that would be one heck of a flight, though. You think about it. With all those folks on there, you kind of want to just sit back and be the fly on the wall. You don't. I wouldn't want to even be leading the convoy. I just want to be like getting some insider trading information lined up.
Somebody said it might also be the safest flight in the world, escorted by fighter jets the entire way.
And maybe a few rockets and other things, too, if you had Elon on there.
In a flight manifest full of alphas, who's the biggest alpha in that group?
The one that doesn't speak, probably. One that just kind of sits back and nods.
I mean, I guess the answer is after the president.
Yeah, well, the pres has to be, but they always say there's people above the president pulling the strings, so
perhaps.
Maybe.
Somebody said Trump is the biggest alpha. Absolutely. We are glad to be with you. It's time for your morning sports update, brought to you by Pearl River Resort, online at pearlriverresort.com. Pearl River Resort is your home for casino thrills, family fun, and live entertainment. It's also a place for great golf. Not one, but two championship courses, the Oaks and the Azaleas. You can book your tee time online at dancingrabbitgolf.com. That is dancingrabbitgolf.com. The record has been hanging in the balance. The record is now that of Judd Utermark. He is the home run king at Ole Miss. 49 career home runs, and he didn't wait long last night to get it. Bottom of the first inning, a two-run home run for Judd Utermark that gave Ole Miss an early two-run lead. And then the second inning rolled around. Walk, double, two-run single, walk, two-run single, walk, three-run double for Will Furness, ground out, pitching change, hit by pitch, sacrifice fly, two-run home run, 10 runs in the inning. Ole Miss led 12-0 after two, and the Rebels went on to a 17-6 win over UT Martin, and now we'll head to Tuscaloosa for the final weekend of the regular season. It was a light night for baseball all over the country. Probably the lightest Tuesday night of the entire year. Not a lot of teams playing midweek games in the final weekend of the regular season. You did have Tennessee winning 11-1 over Belmont. Winthrop beat South Carolina. Worst season in South Carolina baseball history. They now have 31 losses on the year. Went down 5-2. Jacksonville State. I gave you a heads up on this one yesterday.
You set it up.
Picked up their 41st win of the season with a 4-1 victory over the Auburn Tigers last night. Kentucky and Northern Kentucky were scheduled to play, but they did not. Southern Miss, just a game back in the Sun Belt standings. They did not play baseball last night. Final weekend of the regular season coming up for the Golden Eagles when they host. Oh goodness, who is it this weekend that they've got?
Well, you had the Georgia Tech game last night too, where they got beat by Mercer.
Ooh.
Top 5 team going down late in the season.
Yeah.
At the Auburn game, you had another top 10 team going down.
Southern Miss has
And
Georgia
they have
Southern
Georgia
coming in this weekend.
Last place team in the league, 7-20 if I remember. Almost a flip.
That is right.
Script from Southern Miss, who is at 19-8, I believe. So.
Yeah. Needing a sweep. Southern Miss currently ranked 8th in the country. D1 Baseball released its regional projections yesterday, and Southern Miss is penciled in as one of the hosts, the number 1 overall seed, UCLA. They are paired with the Eugene, Oregon regional, which Arkansas is the 2 seed in. Georgia Tech is the 2 seed. They've got Tennessee in that regional. It's paired with Lawrence, Kansas. No SEC teams going to Lawrence. Georgia Bulldogs, the number 3 seed, and that is paired with the Corvallis, Oregon regional. Oregon State would be hosting that. Ole Miss currently projected as the 2 seed in Corvallis. Auburn hosting is the number 4 overall. Mississippi State slated to host as the number 12 seed. They've got Mississippi State, Oklahoma State, NC State, and Southeastern Louisiana in Starkville. Texas, the number 6 overall, hosting in Austin, paired with the Tallahassee Regional. Alabama hosting in Tuscaloosa, paired with the Gainesville Regional, where Florida is the 10 seed. And then you got Texas A&M as the final top 8, which would guarantee them hosting in a super regional. That one is paired with Hattiesburg, where Southern Miss has moved up to the number 9 seed. So, for Southern Miss to get into a spot where they are in the top 8, you would have to think a sweep this weekend and probably sweep their way through the Sun Belt Conference tournament, certainly get to the finals, maybe sweep their way all the way through it and win that. And the Golden Eagles could find themselves in that protected spot where if they win a regional, they're in Hattiesburg for a super regional as well. That last happened in 2022 when they hosted Ole Miss in the Hattiesburg Super Regional. The 2 teams that are just outside the hosting bubble from the SEC, Ole Miss and Arkansas. So the Rebels, as they travel to Tuscaloosa this weekend, certainly with an opportunity in front of them, we will see how that plays out. See, there were a couple of we got the finalists for the Ferris Trophy presented by Pearl River Resort. For the top baseball player in the state of Mississippi, the finalists are Mississippi State third baseman Ace Reese, Mississippi State left-handed pitcher Tomas Valinkas, Ole Miss right-handed pitcher Cade Townsend, Ole Miss third baseman Judd Utermark, and Southern Miss left-handed pitcher Graydon Harris. Well, that's 3 arms that you wouldn't mind having in the same rotation if you could put together a super team.
That would be exactly my thinking right there.
Yeah.
Let me have those 3 guys as my 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, no question. The Ole Miss women's golf team is playing in an NCAA regional, and they are currently in 6th place, heading into the 3rd day of stroke play. Top 5 will advance out of regional play.
Hey, one thing, though, mentioning the stroke play, Utermark. I mean, I got to say,
49.
49, but has there ever been a guy in the history of college baseball that has gotten his money's worth on every swing he took in college than that dude? I mean, he gets his money's worth.
He does not swing soft.
I love watching that guy swing.
He certainly does not. There's a picture online of Eddie Furness with him. So the all-time SEC and NCAA home run leader taking a picture with the all-time home run leader now at Ole Miss. And then also took a picture with his son, Will Furness, the top father-son combo for home runs in the history of college baseball.
That's pretty cool there.
That is quite cool. Thanks for being with us. We've got your Mississippi Lottery update and more coming up after this. Mornings with Richard Cross.
Good morning from the Venable.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
The monitor switch lets you hear
Breaking news. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Force One has landed in Beijing. Expecting some pomp and circumstance for that. I guess it's nighttime. It's 7:53 p.m. currently in Beijing. Sun has gone down, and I guess all of the meetings. So they land today, and I'm assuming the meetings are tomorrow. I wouldn't think that they would just go straight into overnight.
I mean, Trump would probably prefer that.
He might.
Just to test everybody else's mettle.
Yeah, let's see who
can stay awake.
Yeah. Trump famously doesn't take naps. Think on the 13-hour flight to Beijing, he snoozed a little bit.
I mean, maybe he sleeps with his eyes open or something.
Maybe so.
One of those types.
I don't know. Time for your Mississippi Lottery update, brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery, online at mslottery.com. mslottery.com. No jackpot winner for Lotto America. Tonight's drawing is up to $25,420,000 with an estimated cash value of almost $11.5 million. No Monday night jackpot winner, and so tonight's jackpot on Powerball up to $69 million. Nice. $31.2 million is the cash on that. There was no jackpot winner for Mega Millions last night, so the next drawing is coming up on Friday. Pot getting right on that one. $251 million is the jackpot with a cash value of $112,300,000 for a single winner. Last night's numbers, 17, 32, 35, 40, and 47. The Mega Ball was 17. The Mississippi Lottery has just announced its latest Millionaire Maker bonus promotion winners. A player from Madison, right here in the Jackson metro area, scored $15,000. A Biloxi winner picked up 10 G's. 4 more winners of $5,000 in I'm sorry. Winner of $5,000 in Braxton. $2,000 went to Wichita Falls, Texas. Thanks for passing through. And an Olive Branch person won $1,000. There's only one Millionaire Maker drawing left, so don't toss those non-winning scratch-offs. Enter them now through your Second Chance account at mslottery.com or on the official app for a shot at your chance to win a cash prize. So, outstanding. ESPN had yesterday what they call their upfronts. All major networks do those. I guess it was technically a Disney production, so you had ABC and ESPN and all of the other affiliates that were there. They bring in advertisers, they bring in celebrities, and they have a pep rally, basically, to tell you what is coming up in the fall. Part of that is always the announcement of some of the early college football games to build some hype and some promotion. We are now 116 days until Mississippi State and Ole Miss and Southern Miss kick off their season. I guess that's about right. You got that opening weekend with not only the game in Aer Lingus is where Ireland. So you got the game in Ireland. You've got one in Brazil this year in what has traditionally been called Week 0. And then you get to the opening weekend, that Labor Day weekend, and Ole Miss actually got some of this was already known, but a little more official news. Season opener for the Rebels will be Sunday night, September 6th in Nashville in the Music City kickoff. Ole Miss taking on Louisville. 6:30 kickoff for that one. I think you already knew about the Egg Bowl kickoff time against arch-rival Mississippi State. Ole Miss and the Bulldogs will meet in the 123rd Egg Bowl on Black Friday, an 11 a.m. kickoff at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium in Oxford. Assumed but not official until yesterday, Ole Miss and LSU, Week 3, September 19th in Oxford, will be under the lights at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, a 6:30 kickoff on ABC. Boy, howdy. There is an assumption that College Game Day will be in Oxford that day as well. College Game Day will start its season in Baton Rouge. LSU and Clemson in Week 1 of the season, and that's where Game Day will be. So there is a very real chance that LSU will be on Game Day twice in the first 3 weeks of the season. It's not only Lane Kiffin that is taking shots these days at Ole Miss, although he goes, it wasn't calculated. It wasn't calculated. And yet he continues to do news stories and say the same thing over and over. Oh, his ability to make it about him is really impressive. By the way, pretty good editorial from our colleague Ricky Matthews, who has lived in both Mississippi and Louisiana. His thoughts on the whole Lane Kiffin saga. You can read that at supertalk.fm. He, suffice it to say, he sticks up for Ole Miss and the state of Mississippi. Steve Sarkisian, though, the head coach at Texas, got into the mix. He said, at Texas, we will only take 50% of a player's academic credit hours, talking about transfers. You may be a semester from graduating, but you're going all the way back to 50% if you play here and want a degree. But at Ole Miss, they can take you. All you have to do is take basket weaving, and you can get a degree at Ole Miss. Sounds like a guy that wishes the entrance standards were not quite so stringent. He was pointing out that not everybody is playing by the exact same.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
MRC. Mornings with Richard Cross.
Let's get on with the show.
Check it out. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Well, preacher man talking on TV, cutting down my rock and roll. He wants me to send a donation, says he's worried about my soul. Now Jesus walked on the water, Lord, you know I believe that's true. But sometimes I think Jimmy Swagger, no more to do, little walking too.
Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank. Online at communitybank.net. Community Bank, rooted in our community. Community Bank with locations all over the state of Mississippi. Whether you're looking for the most basic of banking services, like opening a savings account or a checking account, or you are looking for help with a mortgage or loans for a new business, Community Bank wants to be your banking partner. Online, again, the website is communitybank.net. You can find a location near you. Communitybank.net, rooted in our community. Bank local, bank community. Alongside Lance Tolbert, I'm Richard Cross. Thanks for joining us. The C Spire text line is open to you, 601-879-4395. Again, 601-879-4395 for you to join the conversation. Right now is the best time if you're looking for a gift for your grad or looking for a gift for dad. They've got you covered with incredible family plan options that include a free phone, a free watch, and maybe a free tablet. You can learn more at cspire.com. There's more to see there. C-Spire, customer inspired. Thanks for joining us this morning. The president has landed in Beijing ahead of the China-U.S. or U.S.-China summit that has been planned and rescheduled. I was thinking about all of the people that are on that trip. Sometimes it's hard to schedule a meeting with a single executive. I know it's hard to get, I assume that it's hard to get on the president's schedule. When the White House calls and says, hey, do you want to accompany us on this trip? And you've got 24 CEOs who are running multi-billion-dollar and in some cases trillion-dollar companies, they just kind of clear the deck. You just call your assistant and be like, yeah, I'm going to be out on the 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th.
Hold all calls.
I'm sorry, sir. You've got to – no. I don't have anything. Clear the deck. I got to go to China.
Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with that type of top of the pyramid, I mean, you just kind of roll. You just go with it.
Yeah.
If you're there a week, 3 days, you got to eat once, eat 3 times, whatever. You're just going to be a part of it. So, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, if somebody said, yeah, Lance, you're going to be the luggage toter, I'm in.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to be a part of it, just to hear.
You're like, hey, Will, sorry, I'm going to be out for a few days.
Yeah.
When are you going to be back? Not really sure.
Going to China. You never know on those types of trips. There was one. I'm trying to remember. Bush, when he went over there, he had a little upset tummy and threw up on the premiere back in the good old days. Bush won.
Really?
Yeah. That kind of
George H.W.
Yeah, that was. The first Bush. Yeah, Bush. He went over there to open up the Chinese economy and negotiate trade deals, and got a little upset tummy. And that was one of those that was publicized so much because it really had a lot to do with his reelection too. The perception.
Yeah.
But with Trump, I can assure you, this guy's going to be on his A game.
They have. There is a lot of pomp and circumstance as the president makes his way off of Air Force One. Some 300 school-age children lining both sides of the red carpet just beyond a military band. And I guess it's as Trump walks toward them on his right, fittingly, I suppose, the Chinese children are waving small American flags. And then on his left, you have Chinese children. When I say children, I'm talking about like junior high, high school age, I assume, that are waving Chinese flags. Can we call those CCP flags? Or
I guess, yeah. It's kind of a distinct look, their flag is. It's been around for a bit. It's an interesting meeting, though, because as you were saying earlier, so many big wigs in the tech world, the meeting's purpose was to basically reemphasize and reinforce personal relationships, as I read, but also talking about economic partnerships. I'm curious what that means. We do a lot of business with China already, and you got some big boys over there in the back pocket with Trump going. It would be interesting to see what kind of deals that will be announced a week out from now. Something will be.
Yeah. A couple of interesting stories about this. Trump was not met by President Xi on the tarmac of the airport in Beijing, which is not really protocol, not for the head of state. He was greeted by Chinese Vice President Han Sheng and by Xi Feng, Chinese ambassador to Washington, by Ma Zhao, maybe, Executive Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, as well as the U.S. envoy to Beijing, David Perdue, and military honor guard, military band, the young people from China as well.
You got to be impressed with the way the Chinese can use a one-syllable word. I mean, they've got all the names are about one syllables, and they're not really the same either.
No.
They're good at it.
Yeah.
They figured it out.
Interesting story from the, let's see, who was this? Where is it? This was a Fox News story. And the headline is Inside the Digital Lockdown for U.S. Officials as Trump Arrives in China. How about this? As President Donald Trump and hundreds of aides, security personnel, and officials prepare to travel to China, many will leave behind one of the most basic tools of modern government, their cell phone. Instead, officials entering China often travel with stripped-down, clean devices, temporary laptops, and tightly controlled communication systems designed to minimize the risk of surveillance, hacking, or data collection in what U.S. officials consider one of the world's most aggressive cyber environments. The precautions can transform even routine tasks into logistical headaches. Messages that would normally travel instantly through encrypted apps or synced devices are instead routed through controlled channels, temporary accounts, or simply relayed in person. Contacts disappear. Cloud access is limited. Some officials operate for days without their normal digital footprint. Current and former officials say the measures reflect a long-standing assumption inside the U.S. government. Anything brought into China, phones, laptops, tablets, even hotel Wi-Fi connections, should be treated as potentially compromised.
Yeah, that's when you before you leave, you steal your best friend's phone. You swap them out. Oh, it was an accident. And I definitely would not be taking my personal phone to China ever.
Which is to say, I suppose, the United States is going into this eyes wide open. Will the president play along? I suppose is a reasonable question. But think about that. You are going to the biggest international summit of this tenure of President Trump's term. I'm sorry, I should say this second term for President Trump. You're taking some of the greatest business and technology minds that exist on the face of the planet along as guests and negotiators. And you are telling every one of them no communication. And you would like to be going into this saying, hey, we certainly have our differences, right? You are a communist country. We are not. We know that you spy on us. You know that we spy on you. But we're not just going to set all that aside and see if we can have some productive meetings. We're taking all the precautions going in, which I guess you should. You would be naive not to.
You know that those guys are going to be spying. I mean, that's the way it works. So, kind of have to take an extra layer of protection with you.
Thomas in Greenwood says anything offshored to India is compromised by China already. That's still amazing to me that we won't admit it. Another message, that's some James Bond type stuff right there.
Yeah, the more modern Bond. The early Bond days, it had like a little Walkman.
Marshall says, he says, Lance, you can't be sure exactly when you're coming home. After all,
yeah,
there's a slow boat to China. Thank you, Jimmy Buffett.
There you go.
Mose says, agreed, Richard. Whether you're left or right, no matter who the president is, when he calls, you answer. I listen in most days. Is Thomas in Greenwood on the payroll? No, but he is a regular. Who is Richard going to be following in the golf tournament? I'll tell you when we come back. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi, presented by Community Bank.
Now it's come to what you want to have. Good morning from the Venable Glass Truck.
Good morning, Mississippi. You're starting your day off right. Welcome to Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Have mercy on me when it comes to crossing the good God of woman. That just scares the devil right out of me.
Every day, the 7 o'clock hour is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you're not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services comes in. They can provide a full range of employer services, plus a custom plan that fits you. For more information on how MWG Employer Services can help you, can help your business, give them a call, 601-206-7966. That's 601-206-7966, or go to mwgemployerservices.com. So we got the question on the C Spire text line before the break, and thanks for being interested. What groups is Richard following? So I found out yesterday afternoon, I think ESPN announced the featured group coverages. So there are 4 of those in the morning, and there are 4 of those in the afternoon. And regular coverage on ESPN and then CBS won't begin until later in the day. So featured groups and featured holes are the way that you can watch early if you are so inclined. Lance, I'm going to be the first voice you hear for PGA Championship coverage for this year.
Man, that's awesome.
Got the early group going off, 7:34 Eastern, so 6:34 here in the great state of Mississippi. Gary Woodland, Jason Day, and Sam Burns. So Sam Burns played at LSU. Jason Day, major champion winner with bad clothes. He's one of those, if you follow golf, one of the Malbon golf guys. It's kind of out there a little bit. And then Gary Woodland, who is, if you don't know anything about him, an incredible story. 3 years ago, they discovered a lesion on his brain. It was a benign brain tumor Long surgery, big scar on the side of his head to go in and remove that. The surgery was successful, but he has, in the aftermath of that surgery, dealt with significant post-traumatic stress syndrome, PTSD. And prior to the Players, a couple of months ago down in Ponte Vedra Beach, he did an interview with the Golf Channel, and he said, I need to share what I'm going through. Said he was burning up too much energy on a daily basis trying to hide his struggle, and he needed to let go of that so that he could heal mentally, emotionally, but also continue to focus on golf.
Man.
In an interview, he used the word hypervigilant over and over. He has a sense if something comes up behind him that he is not aware of, that somebody is coming to kill him.
Huh. Wow.
Now think about that from the standpoint of a professional golfer.
Yeah, where there's
the number of people you're surrounded by. He talked about an instance back last fall where there was somebody carrying like one of the scoring signs that they kind of carry on the golf course, and they kind of bumped him from behind, and he didn't know they were there, and it sent him into a full-on panic attack. Can't control his emotions, starts crying, is just scared to death. And he said, I'm sharing this for two reasons. One, it's for me, so that I can let people know and I can stop wasting energy hiding it, but then also to hopefully help somebody else out there who's also dealing with PTSD to let you know that you're not alone.
Man, that,
it's hard to wrap your mind around what those voices in your head must be like.
Well, in the tumor, it was, as it stated, was located near his amygdala, the brain's central emotional center, and the tumor itself was causing fears and paranoia, anxiety, tremors.
Yeah.
Removing it was called a craniotomy. I didn't know that was the actual term.
They cut down the side of his head, and I mean you see the scar right afterward.
They said they couldn't get all of it removed because of its location, which obviously dealing with the brain, but having PTSD, hypervigilance, and panic is, I can't imagine being a professional athlete and having to deal with that as part of not only your job, but the recovery of mental health and physical health as well. But you got to tip your cap to somebody that's dealing with such emotional trauma and it can still get out there and play at a level. That will be a really interesting round to call.
Yeah.
Him as part of that.
Well, and I think it's a fascinating story to tell as well, so I'm excited about that. So that's what I've got on Thursday. Woodland Day and Sam Burns, who is from Shreveport, C-Spire text line. Sam Burns from Shreveport, where I currently reside. Yeah. It's hard to believe he's making his 25th start in a major. And then Friday morning, 8:07 Eastern, so 7:07 Central Time. And by the way, I'm working with Steve Melnick. For those that follow golf, you know that he has worked kind of everywhere in golf broadcasting and is just one of the great guys in the game. He was a phenomenal amateur and went on to a kind of a short pro career, but has been super successful and just a great dude. And then our on-course reporter is Gary Christian. On Friday morning, Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa, and Shane Lowry. So, fun group there as well. Victor, an Oklahoma State grad. Colin Morikawa won at the PGA out in San Francisco a couple of years ago. And Shane Lowry, one of the across-the-pond guys. So that'll be fun. Be a lot of fun.
Now, have you done golf before? As far as anything like this?
No, I just rolled into a major championship for the first time.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Kind of need to know a little about golf, too. So how's your golf game right now?
Well, I don't think my game matters, but I know the sport well, and
I'm playing.
I think I'm ready and equipped for it. I think I shared this with you. I'm as excited about this assignment as any that I've ever gotten.
Oh, heck yeah.
And I've gotten to do a lot of really, really cool things in broadcasting. Go a lot of neat places, be in some great stadiums, and have great environments. But I was talking about this with somebody yesterday. They're like, "Well, so have you broadcast golf before?" I'm like, "Nope." They're like, "So you just start on a major championship?" I was like, "Yep."
Hey, bring the basketball call to the golf round.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the right way to do it.
I don't know if you'll get asked back after that, but
I have not seen what our kind of opening scene set video looks like yet, and I'm really excited to see that. I hope that happens today, so that I don't script anything. But for the open of the PGA Championship, I feel like I need to be kind of buttoned up on what I want to say and it syncing up with the pictures, so we'll see.
That's cool, though. I mean, there's a lot that goes into creating such an amazing production behind the scenes.
I mean,
I'm always fascinated. Because you never see it on our end. But
did I tell you about that yesterday or not?
You and the producer got to walk.
Yeah, but so the property where Aronimink is 300 acres. And the majority of that is golf course, but you got to have like maintenance areas and whatever. If you play golf, you know that, oh yeah, there's the maintenance shed over there. It's not just a maintenance shed. So you had, this may be more than you're interested in, I don't know. So you've got ESPN and CBS that are doing this. Well, they don't just combine resources. They both bring in all their own resources. And so you have temporary offices that are built for people that have been there for well over a week, just in terms of getting ready for the start of this, for both ESPN and CBS. And you got all these trailers and all the production equipment and the trucks that go along with that. So that's all parked in one area, like the broadcast compound. And you're like, man, it's a big area. And then you start kind of riding around and you're like, oh, wait, there's a food service compound as well, because you got to feed 200,000 people that are coming to the golf course over the course of the week. And then there's a merchandise compound. I told you about how big the merchandise tent was. And then there's like an area that's for agronomy and an area that's for equipment and an area where like all of the lawnmowers and the staff, are parked and ready. It is just a massive, massive footprint.
Well, we have some great texts coming in. So when covering golf, you have to be as loud as possible in the player's backswing. Of course, that will get you invited back. And Jim from Ripley really wants to hear Richard's golf whisper. Well, he is on the 18th green and looking at an undulation.
I think the whisper, though, is more for the on-course reporter.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. You're in your personal.
No, I mean, I don't go full-on Gus Johnson, but like, Woodland stripes it down the road. I mean, we're not doing that. But it doesn't have to be quite as much of an inside voice. To the person that went with the AI and has me in knickers or +4s, if you prefer, full-on Payne Stewart look. Thanks.
And that's looking good, man. I mean, if you rolled out there in that,
yeah,
you're going to win. You're winning big money today.
Coming in late. Game. What do you broadcast? PGA Championship tomorrow and Friday. Doing a couple of the featured groups that start early in the morning. Thanks for being with us. Coming up next, Congressman Mike Ezell will join the conversation.
From thesebro.com.
Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
This is Mornings with Richard Cross.
Let's do it.
SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Pound it down, load it up and truck it. Are we gonna do what they say can't be done? We've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. I'm eastbound up, watch our bandit run. Old Smoke has got
pleasure to be with you. Today is Wednesday. We are in the middle of the week, and we're glad to be with you and glad to be joined now by one of Mississippi's 4 congressmen, Congressman Mike Ezell from the 4th District. Mr. Congressman, good morning. You are looking dapper today, sir.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I was really enjoying listening to Smokey and the Bandit there. I tell you, we have so many young folks that work up here in Washington, and I ask them at various times about these movies that came out when I was in high school, Smokey and the Bandit, and they don't even know what we're talking about. So I get a big kick out of that, listening to that. And of course, that's one of my favorite songs of all time, Eastbound and Down.
I was a big Smokey and the Bandit fan and was doing an interview one time, and somehow we ended up in that area of conversation. And the guy that I was talking to said, well, what did you think about Cannonball Run? And I had not seen Cannonball Run, and he sent me a copy of this. He got, if you're a Smokey and the Bandit fan, you got to watch Cannonball Run too. That's not you can't separate those two.
Yeah, that's it. And I tell you what, occasionally, there's the way we have television these days, you can just click on and watch just any of these old movies you want to. And I will occasionally make the kids and the grandkids watch one of these old movies with me during Christmas time. You ain't got any choice. It's Christmas. Pop wants you to sit here and watch it. Let's get it on.
Yeah. One of the things that we did as parents is, we didn't want to do cartoons all the time, and we were kind of not sure about some of the stuff that was out there. And so when our kids were really young, and if we were traveling somewhere, we would load up Andy Griffith and I Love Lucy on the iPad, and they would go back and watch those, and they ended up loving them. So, anyway.
Yeah. I'm telling you, that was good TV.
Absolutely. No doubt. I bumped into a friend that works in lobbying in D.C. In the airport earlier this week, and I said, what's going on right now? And he said, not a whole lot. He said, there's some appropriation stuff. There are a few bills that are going to get done between now and the end of the year. And I was thinking, now and the end of the year, we're in May right now. So from your perspective, is there much that's going on right now in D.C.?
No, I'll tell you what, really and truly, it's not. Everybody's arguing back and forth about what we're going to do. We need to get our veterans appropriated this year. We need to get that done this week. I think it's going to be on the floor. Dragging these things out is to me, is something that is foreign to me. I've always been let's get this job done. Let's move forward. Let's get things done. As a sheriff and chief of police, you just don't drag things out. And there's always room to debate these various issues, but they beat them to death and then drag it out that much longer. So it's frustrating at times for me. Not used to dragging things out. I like to get things done. But no, there's not a lot going on right now.
I've just got to be honest, as an American citizen and as a voter, that's disappointing to hear, because it feels like there's lots that needs to be done, and there are a lot of things that, especially with a Republican president and a Republican majority in the House and Senate, that we should be getting done. I'm assuming it's frustrating to you as well.
Oh, it's very frustrating because, we have so many members that just absolutely refuse to negotiate on things that could be negotiated so that we could get things done. There are some things that you will not compromise on, like your faith, moral issues that are just very important to us, people that follow the gospel. And, other than that, we've got to be able to negotiate. You're never going to get everything you want, but let's try to get some things done for the country. That's why people are so frustrated with the Congress is, you have hardliners on both sides that absolutely refuse to compromise. And so what happens? Nothing. Very frustrating at times. I've voiced my opinion about this more than once. I can assure you of that.
Yeah. You introduced a few days ago the Offshore Parity Act, and if I understand that correctly, that would extend the kind of Mississippi boundary waters farther into the Gulf. I may be off on that a little bit. Explain to me what that act is about and what that could potentially do for Mississippi.
Well, what it's going to do for Mississippi is give us a little more jurisdiction out there offshore. It's also going to help with our fishermen. It's also going, in my opinion, and I push this regular to try to up the limit on catching red snapper. As you and I know, going offshore fishing, if you can't keep but just 2 or 3 fish, that's no fun. I like to catch, more than 2 or 3 fish. I'm going to spend a day out in the Gulf. You have to load the boat down with people before you can even get a decent number of fish brought back home so you can have a fish fry. So, yeah, it's going to help with our jurisdiction out there. It's going to bring, I think, more for our businesses that go offshore fishing. And I think it's going to be a big help for us.
What is the current boundary in terms of Mississippi's jurisdiction as you extend out into the Gulf?
Well, it goes out past Horn Island. I always gauge things by where I'm fishing. To give you an exact number, it's like I'm going to Horn Island, then I can go only so far, about to the shallow rigs there, and that's about as far as it gets. But this is going to go even a little further on out into the Gulf, a few more miles, so that we can, again, continue to, this is also, in my opinion, it's going to help not just Mississippi, but it's going to help Florida, Texas, Alabama, as well as some of these other folks, Louisiana, because, there's just the great abundance of fishing opportunities out there. And I think it's going to really help the whole, really it's going to do a lot for our the guys that go out, our charter captains, those kinds of things. So it's going to be actually a total of, it's 9 nautical miles. I just got the note handed to me there. Okay. I knew it was about that, but it's going to be 9 nautical miles.
And that would be for the entirety of the Gulf? So waters that are directly off of wherever your land exists would extend 9 nautical miles out. Yes. So we're talking from Galveston, wrapping up north into the east of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and then all the way down the west coast of Florida?
Yes, absolutely. And, I think that's just going to be great for all of us. I'm looking forward to see how that pans out so that we can go catch more fish because, as we all know, growing up on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, we love to fish.
Well, is there a benefit beyond the recreation piece of it? I mean, you talked about the business side of it with charter captains and fishing boats and obviously the recreation piece of it. Is there an effect for oil companies in terms of the work that they're doing on their rigs, or are all of those well beyond this boundary anyway?
Well, I'll tell you, in Florida, I know that there's not any drilling off Florida. Mississippi and Louisiana and Texas, of course, we do a lot in the oil business out there. Yes, this will bring more opportunity for our folks that could potentially go out and check into the drilling out there so that we can continue to provide the resources that we need going forward. As we all know, we really need them right now.
I am curious, and we got a question on the C Spire text line. You mentioned that snapper limit, and obviously we go out, we want to catch fish, and the other piece of that is it's expensive. Whether it's a boat that you've got or you're going out with somebody else, you'd like to be able to catch more than 2 or 3 fish. We had somebody, though, that said, Congressman, don't mess with that snapper limit. It's part of the reason that snapper are back and are abundant in the Gulf. What would be your counter to that?
Well, my answer to that is, if you're going out offshore fishing, I think you should be able to catch more than 4 fish. I think you should be able to catch at least maybe 6. I'll tell you, I've been out over the last couple of years, and there's an abundance of red snapper out there. And I think, we need to make sure that we work with NOAA and our offshore fisheries, Southern Miss, that does a lot of research to make sure that we don't overfish, because I can remember a time when you couldn't catch one. And I understand that. But, for somebody that's buying a fuel tank of fuel to go offshore, I think we need to at least add a couple more to that.
Congressman, just a minute or so before the break, I am curious to hear from you. When you travel to the home district, when you are back in the southern part of the state of Mississippi, what are you hearing from your constituents, from the people who put you in office?
I'm hearing fuel prices. I'm hearing the price of a gallon of milk, a loaf of bread, some of the things that are, that we talk about around the kitchen table. And people are very concerned about that right now. And we all are. And, I continue to try to do as much as I can to make life better for our people back home. But, this is a nationwide thing that's going on right now. And we need to get this matter settled with Iran and some of these other bad actors around the world so that we can get some sort of normalcy back here so we can get our prices back down. But that's what I hear. Gallon of milk, oil, gas, fuel, things like that.
Your Mississippi delegation colleague, Senator Wicker, continues to beat the drum about China. We know that that international summit is happening right now with President Trump there to meet with President Xi. Senator Wicker just a couple of weeks ago said, hey, we got to wrap.
Good morning from the Venable Glass.
Back to Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi and the SuperTalk app.
He said, son, my name is Beauregard Rippey. I come to you from Tupelo, Mississippi. I write songs and I sing like a bird.
Lance going into the deep cuts, Mr. Congressman.
I'm telling you. That's it.
Congressman Mike Ezell is my guest. He represents the 4th District of the state of Mississippi. Before the break, we were kind of talking about some of the things that are happening in D.C. This week, the summit in China happening between the president and President Xi in China as well. I mentioned that Senator Wicker has continued to bang the table. Let's not lose sight of China. They are not a friend. They are a foe. I'm paraphrasing, not using his words exactly.
Yeah. Right.
It sounds like, at least going into this, while President Trump is eyes wide open, he would like to see China be more of a friend. Is that an okay mindset to go into these meetings with?
Well, we would like for them to do that, but I don't have a lot of confidence in the Chinese being our friend. You know, they've been stealing our technology. They've been spying on us. They've been causing more problems than they've been helping over the years. I'm sure President Trump knows this. He doesn't go into things without a plan. He usually comes out ahead. I think that the president will do good things when he gets over there and makes these people understand that we are the United States of America and we're not giving up our role as number one, and that's who we are. And the Chinese they're bad actors, and they have been for a long time. And we cannot let this continue on.
Can this be a situation of keep your friends close but your enemies closer? Like there can be some economic partnership here, but you better not trust them beyond where you can see them?
Exactly right. Just like President Reagan said back in the day, trust but verify.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got to do with these people because, you know, we've seen what they've done in some of our higher learning college institutions around the country. Sending so many of these students in here, they spy, they lie, and they do everything they can to steal our technology, and we cannot let this continue on.
Congressman Mike Ezell is my guest. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi, presented by Community Bank. Just a couple of minutes left, Congressman. The redistricting conversation is everywhere that we look right now in the wake of the Louisiana versus Calais Supreme Court decision. Just a couple of weeks ago. This is something that could potentially have an effect on you. I don't know exactly what the 4th District might look like in the event that it were redrawn. I'm curious what you are hearing in D.C. in terms of the redistricting conversation in Mississippi and in other states, and also your thoughts on the matter.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be up to the legislature. It's going to be up to the governor and the legislature if he calls a session, and if that happens, I'll just kind of taking a wait and see. We've had a number of calls, and our answer is, we're going to go along with what the state puts in place and continue on from there. I think it needs to be a fair and above board kind of thing, and we'll just kind of wait and see what the state does on that.
Are you for the idea of Mississippi redistricting?
I think we should do exactly what the legislature wants us to do, according to what's best for the state. I think it's a good idea.
All right. Congressman Mike Ezell. Anything you're working on specifically beyond the Offshore Parity Act right now, between now and kind of I feel like the deeper that we get into the summer, the deeper we get in closer to midterms, the less activity that is going to happen in D.C.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got a number of things that we're working on right now. Of course, I'm always looking out for the Mississippi Gulf Coast and the state. trying to get something done with our flood insurance down on the coast. And also, I just want to put a plug in. It is Police Week. I was out early this morning on the National Mall with the Speaker of the House, and let's put a plug in for our police officers and deputy sheriffs across the state.
Outstanding. Spoken as a true lawman yourself, I appreciate you mentioning that. Since you brought his name up, let me just ask you, the job that Mike Johnson is doing, Speaker of the House, it feels like every time he turns around, he's having to try and take a tiny thread and stick it through the eye of a tiny, tiny needle. How's he pulling it off?
And yeah, he does. I'll tell you this, I got a lot of confidence in Mike. He works hard. The man, I'm telling you, he sleeps about as much as President Trump does. He's telling us the other day, every time I get sleep, the president's calling me. But I'll tell you what, every time it looked like it's not going to happen, Mike Johnson pulls a rabbit out of his hat and gets the job done.
It certainly has been impressive to watch how that works. Congressman Ezell, I appreciate your time. Wish you all the best. Safe travels to you, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much.
It's Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank. That is Congressman Mike Ezell, law enforcement background, Mississippi outdoorsman. You heard him talking about the Offshore Parity Act and trying to extend the jurisdiction, not just for Mississippi, but for all of the Gulf states farther out into the Gulf waters, 9 nautical miles. Clearly a man that loves being in the Gulf of America. We'll take a time out. We've got more coming up. 8 o'clock hour on the way. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
And I saw stars dancing on the water. I heard Elvis singing Blue Suede Shoes. That old mud river was my witness. Night I fell in love with the Queen of Memphis.
Your Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi, and the Super Talk app.
Oh, my sweet Carolina, I don't guess I'll ever find another woman put together.
Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Thanks for joining us. The show is presented by Community Bank, online at communitybank.net. Community Bank, rooted in our community. We are joined this morning by the governor of the great state of Mississippi, Tate Reeves, and pleasure to have you on as always. Appreciate your time and look forward to diving in. There's a lot going on, I think, some of it behind the scenes and some of it a little more out front.
No doubt, Richard. Thanks for having me on. It's always good to be on Super Talk Mississippi. I was under the incorrect assumption that in the middle part of year 7 of one's gubernatorial term, things are going to slow down a little bit. But fortunately, I think it speaks to the positive things happening in our state. We are wide open, and it is all of my constituents will be happy to know it is still a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day job, and most of those hours each day we're still having a lot of fun growing Mississippi's economy and improving our educational achievement levels, and I'm just excited about the future of Mississippi and appreciate all of the work that's being done both out front and behind the scenes by folks across our state to make Mississippi continue to grow.
Do you believe in the idea of a lame duck period at the end, especially of a second term as governor, or can you still be effective in terms of leadership and getting things done?
Well, I think certainly if you look at just from a legislative standpoint, it does get harder. But if you look at the session where they set a day aside for the intentional purpose of coming back and trying to override vetoes on non-conservative legislation, and they were unable to get the votes to do so, I feel pretty good about where we are in terms of affecting policy. And the reason for that is because when we make decisions on legislation, whether it's to sign the bill or to veto what we view as bad things, it's coming from a conservative philosophy. And the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of Republicans in Mississippi are conservative. And because of that, we tend to have very strong support from people all across the state. And because of that, it gets harder to get a majority of Republicans to want to override a conservative Republican governor. And so I feel very confident in where we are. And what I've told our team repeatedly over the last couple of years, we're going to have a crazy time in Mississippi over the next year and a half from an election standpoint. Our job is to keep our head down and continue to grow this momentum, so much so that it doesn't necessarily matter who gets elected governor next, that we have so much momentum that it'll take them a couple years to kind of figure out what they're doing in this position. But if we have such strong momentum that can continue to grow, that's what our focus is on. And I think you're seeing it right now. We announced, as an example, on Monday, a new economic development project in Batesville, Mississippi. Yeah. I'm actually leaving from here today to go to Batesville for yet another project there in Panola County, a fairly large project with $70 million capital investment, 50 jobs. I talked a lot about this when I ran in 2019 and particularly in 2023 with the explosive growth that's happening and has happened over the last 20 years in DeSoto County with what's happening in your neck of the woods in Lafayette County. Now we're seeing Tate and Panola and Marshall counties with just huge economic successes that they're literally racking up monthly. That entire region is doing phenomenally well economically, and I think that's a great thing for our state.
There's a lot to unpack on the economic development side, and we'll get to that in a second. You brought up the vetoes. I want to go back to that as well, but I do think we need to at least start with what I think is the elephant in the room. There is a special session that you have called that is to begin 1 week from today. The call was for redistricting of the Supreme Court districts in Mississippi, but the Fifth Circuit stayed that ruling. They handed it back down to Judge Aycock. I guess we've got to wait and see if she's going to vacate the ruling since it was remanded from the 5th District. Is there still going to be a special session a week from today?
Well, let's start with trying to explain so that every viewer understands the distinctions. We have 3 separate and distinct issues that the state has to deal with. Number one is the one that is the most sexy, and that is congressional redistricting.
Right.
And that is what's going on and sweeping the country right now. The reason that is such a big deal right now from a congressional redistricting standpoint is because the Voting Rights Act was passed in the mid-1960s. I will point out that a higher percentage of Republicans in the Congress voted for the VRA than the percentage of Democrats. But the Voting Rights Act was passed in the mid-1960s in 1965. And since that time, the National Democrat Party has used it to partisan gerrymander the states that they control to benefit the Democrat Party through the legislative process. And then in all the other states where the Republicans control, they have exhibited a strategy that has been referred to sue until it's blue. And so they have sued through the courts and gerrymandered districts in Republican-controlled states, again, just to benefit the National Democrat Party. That's the reason that the Democrat Party over many, many years, as they have shifted further and further to the left, have continued to maintain competitiveness in the Congress. It's because they've gerrymandered their states, and that through the courts, they have forced Republicans to not be able to look at the congressional districts on a partisan basis. And so that's what the significance of Calais was. And so
the congressional districts in Illinois and what they tried to draw in Virginia that has since been overturned by the Virginia Supreme Court would be examples of Democrat gerrymandering in those particular states.
That is exactly right. I mean, in Virginia, where we have a saying in my office, we talk about it a lot. In politics, often pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. Mm-hmm. And what we've seen in Virginia is they tried to get too cute, and look, that they were able to barely through an initiative process that where the wording was very misleading, to say the least. Not that the court ruled on that; they could have, but they just ruled on the fact that there had to be an intervening election, and therefore they threw out what Virginia tried to do. And so that's a congressional redistricting issue, and one that we as a state need to look at and we need to consider. What I would tell you is the tenure of Congressman Benny Thompson reigning terror on the 2nd Congressional District is over. It is not a question of if, it's a question of when. And I think that that's something that we will continue to look at and try to determine. But the congressional redistricting is not the reason the special session was called 21 days after Calais. The reason it was called 21 days after Calais is because a federal court in North Mississippi, you mentioned the judge's name just a second ago, ruled in August of last year that our 3 Supreme Court districts did not provide an adequate opportunity for a Democrat-preferred black candidate to win. Now, I want to take just a step back so that your listeners understand. I thought that was an asinine ruling. If you look at the Central District of Mississippi, we currently have 5 people that represent the Central District. Okay? 2 of those individuals represent the Central District in partisan races and were elected in partisan races. 3 of those are in nonpartisan judicial races. Well, of the 5 individuals that represent the Central District, right now we have 1 white male, we have 1 white female, and we have 3 African American males. So 3 of the 5 individuals that represent the Central District are African Americans. And the judge in the Northern District ruled that there's not a fair shot for an African American to get elected. I don't think very many people look at that and think that makes any sense whatsoever.
If I remember correctly, all of those were competitive races also.
They were very competitive, very close, very tight elections. And, an outsider may look at it and say, hey, all 5 of these are very close elections. 3 went to the Democrat-preferred candidate, 2 went to the Republican-preferred candidate. Maybe the best candidate won in those elections. But the judge in North Mississippi ruled that those districts did not give what the plaintiffs called the black-preferred black candidate a reasonable chance of winning, even though they had won 60% of the races and hold 60% of the seats. But we were able to continue that litigation. We filed suit. We actually appealed the liability phase where she ruled in that way to the Fifth Circuit. And then Calais came out, and the legislature chose not to redraw the districts in anticipation that Calais may change the underlying assumptions in that ruling. And it turns out that's exactly what happened. And so the plaintiffs, to their credit, joined us in a joint motion before the Fifth Circuit and asked them to vacate the order.
Let's press pause there for just a second. We'll pick it up on the other side of the break. Governor Tate Reeves is my guest. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning from the Venable.
Back to Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi and the SuperTalk app.
They're gonna put me in the movies. They're gonna make a big star out of me.
Governor, Wednesdays are our country and western bump music day, and so sometimes Lance goes mainstream and sometimes he goes deep cuts.
Well, I'm just going to be clear. For the entirety of the rest of my term, I'm only coming on the show on Wednesdays from here on out.
There we go.
I like the country and western bump music. I'm good with it.
That means you're going to come back, so we're grateful for that. So you pointed out a second ago that there are 3 issues that we're dealing with in the redistricting conversation. One of them is redrawing the Supreme Court lines. That is what you've called the special session 4 that begins a week from today. You've got the congressional redistricting conversation, and then, and correct me if I'm wrong here, don't you have to take a look in the rearview mirror also at the legislative redistricting that happened a year ago that cost Republican seats in both the House and the Senate and ultimately cost Republicans a supermajority in the Senate?
That is exactly right. So just as a brief reminder, what the Fifth Circuit has ruled on Monday of this week, so literally less than 36 hours ago, they vacated the judge's order from the Northern District of Mississippi on judicial redistricting. Yesterday, Judge Aycock in the Northern District gave both parties 14 days to opine as to where this litigation should go from here. Okay. I personally believe it should be thrown out because even the plaintiffs have admitted that under the new Calais guidelines, they didn't even try to prove what Calais requires, which is that you have to prove that there was intent to racially discriminate. This map was drawn in 1987. The judicial map was drawn in 1987. It was pre-cleared by the Department of Justice before it ever went into effect. In the early 1990s, there was litigation trying to throw that map out by some of the similar plaintiffs to what we have today. The plaintiffs lost that litigation. And so I think that the judicial redistricting case, which has been vacated, forcing there to be new maps, now by the Fifth Circuit, should no longer be valid. I think they should throw the whole case out. But regardless of whether or not they throw this case out, the plaintiffs have stipulated that they are not going to seek any new elections in 2026 on judicial races in Mississippi. And the absolute earliest, even if the lawsuit goes forward and even if they win both the liability phase and it doesn't get overturned by the Supreme Court, that they would not even attempt to try to get elections in 2026. Because of all of that, Richard, there is no longer any reason for the legislature to come in on next Wednesday, and so for judicial redistricting. And so I do not expect that the legislature will come in for a special session next Wednesday because judicial redistricting, there's no longer a reason to do so. The third thing...
So let me just follow up there. So you could either cancel the call that you have made, or you could change the call, but I don't hear you saying that you're going to do that as we...
That is correct. We could either rescind the call, which is what we're likely to do sometime in the next few hours, and
stay tuned.
Well, the decision maker will probably make that decision sometime in the next few hours. I've got to go to Batesville to make an economic development announcement, but sometime later today, I think it will become even more public that we will not be having a special session on redistricting on next Wednesday as it relates to judicial redistricting. And then the third point, which you make, which I want to make sure we get to, is yes, there was a 3-judge panel that ruled against the state of Mississippi, which reduced the number of Republican state senators and reduced the number of Republican state House members. Again, there was no even allegation or accusations that those maps were drawn in a way that it was intentional. It was just the effect is what the 3-judge panel ruled. And so there is no doubt that there are a lot of state legislators who believe that we should, going into the 2027 elections, at a minimum, go back to the way the maps were drawn in 2021 and 2022. I would submit to you we ought to take the entire map, legislative map, and we should take the entire Supreme Court map, and we should take the entire congressional map, and we should draw based upon partisanship.
So is there a scenario where you don't wait until the 2027 elections, that you immediately go back to the previous map and invalidate that election because it was unconstitutional and reseat the representatives or the senators that had those seats?
That sounds like it would make sense, but it's just not the way it works. The fact is, the only way that you could have any changes in the current composition of the legislature is for there to be new elections.
Okay.
And so there is a possible scenario where the legislature could come in, they could change the legislative maps, any legislative map that is that is altered. They could run in a special election, which would, at this point in the calendar, would have to occur sometime around December or January. And I would submit to you asking the various counties involved to do that, knowing that qualifying for next 2027's legislative elections occur starting January the 1st, that is not a likely scenario. But there is no doubt that there will be discussion, and there should be discussion about redrawing the legislative map going into the 2027 elections.
All right, congressional redistricting. There has been, I don't know if pressure is the right word or not, but I would say pressure from the White House for Mississippi to act and act quickly. We have seen Tennessee act already. We see Alabama, Louisiana doing that right now. Difference here is you've already had primaries for the congressional elections for midterms coming up this November. Are you going to call on the legislature to redraw congressional district lines immediately? And then what does that look like if the answer is yes?
Well, I would disagree slightly with the notion that there has been pressure by the White House at this point.
Encouragement?
That there has been pressure or encouragement by the White House at this time to redraw the congressional map. Now, having said that, we've had lots of conversations with our friends at the White House all the way back to October of 2025 with respect to the potential for redrawing the maps. Now, where we find ourselves today, there are a lot of people inside the state, mainly politicians who are running for office in 2027, that are trying to make hay on this particular issue.
Whether they've announced or not?
Whether they've announced or not. This is this is going to be the silly season in Mississippi politics over the next year and a half.
And we are here for it, by the way.
It is great for your business model, and I think that's a good thing for you and this organization. But there are a lot of people in the state of Mississippi talking about it because we've seen what's happened in other states. I would submit to you that no one is working closer with the White House on what the congressional maps in Mississippi look like than I am. Again, we have been in constant conversation with the political team at the White House. I have literally met with the president in the Oval Office within a couple of months ago when I was in Washington. Understand something that maybe, while it may be in the best interest of individual politicians in Mississippi to talk about congressional redistricting, what happens in Mississippi doesn't happen in a vacuum. What happens in our state affects what happens in other states, or what happens in other states may affect what happens in Mississippi. So do you know, Richard, how many states in the country have already had primaries that could potentially, if it's legal to redistrict after the primary, that could redistrict today?
I mean, Georgia had already started, and Brian Kemp has said that constitutionally they could not undo what had already been done, and so they would look at redistricting going forward, and it would happen, but it wasn't going to happen for this election cycle. Outside of Georgia,
they haven't had an election day, but they started the process because they have early voting
right.
in Georgia. I have, of course, fought early voting in Mississippi because I think it's a terrible idea. But that notwithstanding, they had started early voting, and so it does not apply to Georgia. I'll tell you who it does apply to: Illinois. Currently, Illinois has 3 Republican seats, and Mississippi has 1 Democrat seat. So Illinois is currently in their session. They have they're supposed to be done at the end of May. Heretofore, they have chosen not to redistrict, and the deadlines have actually passed on their redistricting proposals because they've already had an election. Primary, and so we're monitoring that close. We're working very closely with the White House. But I'll end with this. I know you got to go to break. What I will say is, I'm going to do what's in the best interest of Mississippi, and I'm going to do what's in the best interest of America, and I'm going to work very closely with the Trump administration to make sure we accomplish both of those goals.
Do you have to hit the road right now, or you got time to hang for one more segment?
I can hang for another segment.
Great, because we've got much more to get to with the governor of the state of Mississippi, Tate Reeves. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi, presented by Community Bank, online at communitybank.net. The C Spire text line is open at 601-879-4395.
Me blue. A man needs a woman that he can lean on, but my leaning post is done left and gone. She's long gone.
From the Seabrook.
On your radio, on our app, or on your smart speaker. We're always free. Super Talk Mississippi, your home for Mornings with Richard Cross.
I couldn't find anywhere else, but I don't want to be nobody. Just want a chance to be myself.
Our conversation has been dominated by redistricting, and hopefully we can quickly put a bow on that and then move on to a couple of other things with the governor. The time always goes quickly. Governor Tate Reeves, my guest. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk Mississippi. If I was following correctly what you were saying before the break, when you referenced Illinois and Mississippi and kind of tied those two together. So if you were to go down the congressional redistricting road in a really tight timeline to theoretically win a Republican in Congressional District 2, where Benny Thompson sits right now, are you saying that might trigger Illinois to try to do the exact same thing where the results might not be as favorable for Republicans?
I'm saying there is a risk with every move on this puzzle that is made. Right now, if South Carolina, who has not yet had primaries, pauses their primaries to deal with one of their seats, if Alabama, which has gotten a ruling from the Supreme Court yesterday, goes forward with their map that was drawn in 2023, if Louisiana redraws their map that was required for them to do under Calais, the net result of the redistricting battle to date will be plus 16 Republican-leaning seats. Now, keep in mind, candidates still have to go out and win these elections, so let's not put the cart before the horse. But the net result of the redistricting debates after Virginia and after these three southern states would be plus 16 for Republicans and plus 6 for Democrats. That's plus 5 in California and plus 1 in Utah. And so that's a net plus 10 for Republican-leaning seats in the redistricting battle. Now, Utah is under question because of the allegations between the judge and the lawyer in the case. I'm not going to get into all of that.
You sure?
But I am sure, because I don't know all of the details. And but what I do know is that so far the redistricting battle has been a net positive for Republican-leaning districts. I think that's a good thing for our country. And I just want to be clear, there is no doubt that Mississippi can and should redraw the 4 congressional districts. The question is not if we should do it. The question is simply when we should do it. And I'm going to do what's best for Mississippi. I'm going to do what's best for America. And I'm going to work very closely with the Trump administration to make sure we accomplish both of those things.
So just to be clear, congressional redistricting is on, not just on the radar, but it's on the timeline for Mississippi, but that timeline may not be before this year's midterms.
Just to be clear, and we've been talking about this for 30 minutes now, is it's complicated. Every issue surrounding redistricting is complicated, and I think it is fair to say that we are looking at every potential option as to what that may look like and when is the best time to look at it. But I will tell you that these I've seen these maps going around the internet which show 4 R+20 districts. Mm-hmm. Those are not realistic.
Well, I want to congratulate you, because I am now putting you in a category that I was put into, which I'd never been put into before. You are now a flaming lib. We got a message on X after I said basically 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, this is more complicated than it is being made out to be. RC is a flaming lib. So congratulations. I don't know if you've been called that before, but you're now a flaming lib.
Not a lot of people in and around Mississippi or national politics call me that. I've been called a lot of names. Some of them a lot uglier than that even, although that's pretty insulting. But look, the reality is most things in government are never as simple as some people want them to be. And so I will tell you, you know this, the people of Mississippi know this, I have an extremely close relationship with the team in the White House right now, and we are going to work hand in glove to make sure that we do what's best for Mississippi and what's best for America.
Segue, it's always more complicated than it seems. Let's talk about the SNAP benefit error rate just for a moment. We know that there, at least as the One Big Beautiful exists today, without some change from the White House or some stay, there is a significant penalty that is coming to Mississippi for where our SNAP benefit error rates are. Now, Mississippi is certainly not alone in that. I think it's 42 of the 50 states are going to be facing some sort of a penalty as well. As much as $120 million, maybe more in the $80 million range. Candidly, your office has been pretty quiet about this issue publicly. What can you tell us about what you have directed DHS to do to try to fix the error rates so that this is not an ongoing multi-million-dollar penalty, but more of a one- or two-time thing?
Yeah, so again, you're exactly right. When it comes to complicated matters, the SNAP error rate is one of many, but it is certainly a very complicated matter. Just to take a step back, there are really two types of reporting that can be done, and you've reported on this a little bit, I think, over the last couple of months. Most states do what's called simplified reporting. Mississippi has adopted, when I was lieutenant governor, actually, a change reporting scale of how we actually do reporting. And what that means is basically how often do you do eligibility redetermination? How often do you determine if an individual is eligible to receive the government benefit? We believe that my view is that the mere weight of the welfare state on society is huge. And I believe that no one should be on welfare of any kind for one day longer than they have to be.
Then they're eligible.
Then they're eligible, absolutely. If you're not eligible in the program, you should become ineligible the day you become ineligible. With simplified reporting, they only check eligibility once, it depends, but every 6 months, every 9 months, every 12 months. What happens when you do not check eligibility, and we saw this in Medicaid during the pandemic, during the pandemic, our Medicaid rolls increased by 200 to 250,000 people. We went from about 675,000 to over 900,000 people on Medicaid because the Biden administration said you cannot check eligibility. If you're going to get the enhanced Medicaid reimbursement rate, you cannot check eligibility. Well, one of the things that we do very often in Mississippi, both on Medicaid and all other welfare programs, is we check eligibility as often as we can. So simplified reporting versus change reporting. Now, there are some who would tell you that the mere fact that we do change reporting instead of simplified reporting leads to a higher error rate. I would submit to you that the facts just don't justify that. In fact, Mississippi has a lower error rate than half the states, and in fact, in fiscal year 2024, our error rate was 10.69%, and the national average was 10.93%. So, again, our error rate, way too high. But it's actually less than the national average. So the question then becomes, okay, Governor, if you are so convinced that change reporting versus simplified reporting is not the way in which to resolve the challenge, because the Trump administration, as you mentioned in the One Big Beautiful Bill, said everybody's error rate is way too high. They equate that error rate to waste, fraud, and abuse. By the way, I think they're right. And so the goal has to be to significantly reduce that error rate. I'm happy to tell you that we have implemented a large number of things over the last several months to start addressing that in the state of Mississippi. Bottom line, our error rate has gone from 10.69% down to 9.43%. That threshold,
which drops you from the 15% penalty to the 10% penalty,
which drops because everything above 10%, you got to pay 15% of all costs. Between 8 and 10% of an error rate, you got to pay 10%. If you can get it below 8%, then you only have to pay a 5% of the total cost. And then if you get it below 6%, then you don't have to pay. There's no penalty. And so our goal is going to be to get it below 6. We have until September the 30th of 2026, so the time frame is very tight. The likelihood we can get it below 6% before September 30th is pretty low, but the likelihood that we can get it below 8% is very possible. We are on the trajectory right now to get that error rate below 8%, and we're going to continue to work to do that. And so the things that we are doing, we have had significant training really for the last year of our staff on how to do a better job and be focused on the requirements of change reporting. We have utilized predictive AI models and tools that identify trends in those error rates, and we've identified the hot spots in the state. We are hiring 2 different firms to help us work from a technology standpoint. I literally have I have document after document of what the total number of cases versus the individuals versus the amount of money that is in question, and we are literally working on this every day, and we're gonna get it fixed.
We are unfortunately out of time, but I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
From the Venable Glass Trap.
Where you come first for news, fast and free. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Well, I went down to the Grundy County auction.
All right, so we broke a little news there with the governor. No special session. It was scheduled to go off a week from today, and the governor said that that will become official later today, so stay tuned for that official announcement. But we will not have senators, representatives, legislators in Mississippi back at the Capitol next week. So file that away. I will tell you there was one thing that I wanted to get to with the governor, and we just ran out of time. The clock is sometimes our enemy. I certainly appreciate his time for spending the better part of an hour with us and kind of talking through, especially some of those complicated redistricting issues. I wanted to ask him about the bill that ultimately the legislature did not overturn his veto on with regard to the Rural Healthcare Transformation Fund. We have had legislators, Lance, correct me if I'm wrong here on this, but I think they have said the biggest piece of their concern about that was transparency, that they wanted that process, the distribution of those funds, the allocation of those funds, the implementation of those funds to be transparent. Hob Ryan talked about secret meetings when he was with us, and I asked the governor about that as he was walking out, and he said he had a meeting with his team 2 days ago in which he instructed his people to take the transparency requirements that the legislature wanted and talked about being the most important piece of that and implement those even without the legislation that they were trying to get across the finish line, where the legislature would control the allocation of those dollars as opposed to the executive branch. So I'm taking his word on that, and if that indeed was the only concern or the most significant concern, then it is good news. Those transparency pieces, according to the governor, he told me literally 3 minutes ago that he had instructed his team to put those transparency items that were written into the bill in place. And he said the legislators that are involved with this are welcome to attend any meeting that we've got on this. We're going to be an open book in terms of the way those funds are allocated and distributed as part of the rural healthcare transformation process.
And that's one of the pieces of the big, beautiful bill, $205 million that we had secured here in Mississippi, correct?
For year one. It was going to be
$1
billion over the course of 5 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, anytime you're transparent and people have confidence in where those monies are going, I mean, that's what you want to hear. You want to see it in practice as well, and the governor's serious about that.
I think recapping the redistricting conversation, if you were late joining us, certainly would encourage you to go back, supertalk.fm, or grab the Mornings with Richard Cross podcast. You can listen at your convenience. It's free through the SuperTalk Mississippi app, which you can download in the App Store or on Google Play. Lance also will have a lot of these clips online, right on the Mornings Cross Twitter feed, and they'll be anyway. You can find them everywhere. So the kind of the three legs of redistricting that we have talked about over and over and over: redrawing the Supreme Court district lines, congressional district lines, and legislative district lines. I think what you heard the governor say is he would like the legislature to take a look at all of those district lines and make sure that going forward, I guess let me pause for a second. One of the interesting things about redistricting and the Voting Rights Act and this Supreme Court decision, Louisiana versus Calais, you actually legally are allowed to draw district lines based on partisanship. You can do that. Being in power has its privileges. And if you are in power as Republicans or as Democrats, you can draw lines that are partisan based. What you cannot do is draw lines that are specifically race-based. Now there are some people that would say that's the same thing, that partisanship and race go hand in hand. I think that's a little disingenuous if that is your argument. Maybe less so in Mississippi than in some places, but so the Republican Party is in power in Mississippi, and therefore the opportunity exists to redraw lines, Supreme Court districts, congressional districts, legislative districts. The governor said, and this was a direct quote, the days of Benny Thompson in power representing the 2nd District are over. But they're not over yet. It does not sound like there is going to be a strong push for Mississippi to do congressional redistricting before the November elections. But that certainly is going to be on the docket, and it's something that Speaker of the House, Jason White, has already said. One of those select committees that he put together, one of them is focused on redistricting as well. Obviously, the House and the Senate will have to work together on that here in Mississippi to ultimately get to the finish line. Again, my thanks to the governor, Tate Reeves, for joining us, and we appreciate you being with us as well. Mornings with Richard Cross, presented by Community Bank. Bank local, bank community, Community Bank, online at communitybank.net.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.